Hello, my event friends. Welcome back to EWA Talk. I'm back again with a new episode. Our guest today is Alejandro Verzoub. He's the president of AV Business and Communication SA, the first full-service incentive and marketing company in Argentina. He's a columnist and international lecturer on the thematic motivation, loyalty, and corporate events. He's also the member of SITE, Society of Incentive Travel Excellence, an international organization that brings together executives specialized in disciplines related to incentive programs. Welcome to the podcast, Alejandro. It's great to have you here today with me.
Very good. Thank you, Radhika, and welcome for this nice conversation that I hope.
So, Alejandro, it's great to have you today on my podcast. And I have a couple of questions to ask you from how you started your journey, how it's going. There's so much to know more from you. So, first of all, I would like to start with thanking you to take out time and joining. It's a pleasure to have you today with us. And it's really great experience to host podcasts with people like you. So I'll probably just get started with my first question. And that would be, could you walk us through your professional journey? What attracted you to the events industry in the first place?
Okay, well, even I have long hair. I'm a little old, so I'm 59 right now. And I started in advertising in 1984, more precisely, when I started a little advertising agency with a partner. And for 10 years, we were involved in advertising campaigns, graphic, TV, and some promotion activities, where at the beginning of 1995, I was involved in understanding that there were other segments where most of the communication skills and marketing strategies could be also introduced to incentivize workforces and clients. And that is why I got specialized in the incentive campaigns field and the motivation activities. And that at the end or at the beginning are very tight and connected strategies that involves events in different shapes and aspects. Most of those events in the incentive programs are used for launching the incentive campaign. Other events that take place are while you want to reward the winners of the campaign, you need to organize those events. And then finally, when you consider that the most attractive carrot to motivate the participants to achieve their goals are experiences, then you need to create those experiences. You have to organize those incentive travel experiences, paying attention to all the details that are required and the special activities that you need to create to convince those participants that their effort was worth, because they're going to be rewarded with an excellent and an exceptional form. And that those are some of the situations where you need to be involved in events. And with the time, you get more specialized, you travel. I joined SITE, the association that is the leader in internationally about incentive travel. And I was luckily the first Latin American who got the president of the association in 2012. And that is where I got most of the valuable connections and learnings from what's going on internationally, because not all the cultures and not all the countries organize incentives on the same way or with the same patterns. And by being connected with an international community of professionals and colleagues and suppliers, you gain and you obtain a very rich aspect of in understanding that motivation could be done very creatively, sometimes with technology, sometimes with touching emotions, sometimes by showing foreigners the culture of a very different destination. And that's because of the contrast of cultures. it's already an incentive itself. So that's a very short briefing of how I got involved in the event industry.
That was indeed very, very impressive, I should say. It was very impressive and motivating. So I could say it's knowledge, it's travel, it's moving around, it's know more people, and that's how the journey has been till now, right? So it was so good to so much about you, Alejandro. Now we'll move to my next question. The mice industry
Okay.
has undergone a lot of changes over the last few years. What are the different trends shaping the mice business post COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, there are certain basics that are not changing. What is changing is that in some cases, people like to gather and they like to be in certain programs where they're gonna meet new friends or new colleagues, but also they require certain exclusivity because everybody is singular. It's different. So the challenge for the meeting planners or for the incentive planners is to mingle certain differences that are part of the human diversity. That means 25 years old ladies joining in the same group with some guys that are 55. And it is sometimes not that easy to engage everybody with the same proposal. There are certain activities that are fun for all ages. There are certain activities that if you have a full group based on men, it won't be so attractive to organize a dancing party.
Yeah.
And if you have only ladies, because sometimes the nature of the group, because our or employees or clients provokes that the majority of the participants are or ladies or men, it requires a certain sensitivity from the meeting planner perspective to put the details on the ground, understanding how a lady would feel being in Las Vegas, enjoying a lot of activities like car race cars driving or jumping in the Colorado Canyon and doing some adventure activities. That requires a certain adjustment to the diversity of the group. Another trend again is based on now after the COVID situation. It's very common that in the past you used to bring the groups sharing a room. That means using double occupancy. And now it's more preferable to allocate everybody in a single room, which I always thought, and I explained to my clients that the add value of having your own room, it's always an upgrade for all participants before COVID also, because at the end, there are some strange behaviors of people going to sleep with the lights on, or those who need to eat or drink alcohol to get sleep, or they want to stay late awaken, and others want to go sleeping at 8 o'clock. So the flexibility of being alone in your room, it's a very valuable asset for the organization and the logistics. I don't know if you want to hear other ideas or trends, but again, in our field,
it was
really
great insight, and the Christmas being around, you've all motivated us to have some fun. Some of the activities in our office also is going on. So, with this, I would like to take my third question. That is the trend towards incorporating virtual events elements into physical events to facilitate hybrid meetings is on the rise. Would you like to share any strategic planning or marketing tips for the MICE sector to increase sales?
Well, I would say that the narrative of fear provoked that in 2020, even with certain regions limited with lockdowns, the virtual events were the only activities that were on the corporate field available, and it was the only activity which we could still build relationships and communications with the different communities, and that was okay. But again, now if you look towards a normality, which on certain levels we assume that we will be back to normal, but always governments are not trustable. So sometimes you can see that there are certain dreams and signs that they would like to recreate the fear with new versions of a virus because they want you to be injected for life. But despite those science fiction situations that are not so science fiction, they are real. Look at what's happening in China. I feel that we will be back to normal. And when we say back to normal is that people like to use face-to-face events. Virtual, it's not discarded, but virtual for me and for my behavior as meeting planner, it's an add-on, just as it could be using a certain additional feature for your events. It's not a structural thing because we are based and we do our living moving people physically from one country to another. So what I could do in an incentive with a virtual meeting, it's very limited in incentives. In meetings or in conventions, maybe there is more space to obtain a broader and a greater attendance. Some are physical, some are virtual. But again, people, because of the flexibility of doing most of the time having the flexibility of working at home, we are already using Zoom or Google Meet many hours a day. So my understanding and my reaction is that if on top of that, those Zoom meetings will be overloaded with a specific attendance, again, through a screen, the lack of attention and the lack of engagement, it's very big. So if you want to increase numbers of participants, you might think that opening a virtual appearance or registration could increase the numbers. But my question and my challenge for everybody who's under those segments is, what is the quality of attention you're going to get? And again, there are certain MICE activities where the virtual possibility makes more sense to be considered as a structural. For incentives, I'm sorry to say that nothing that you are showing through a screen could mirror or could at least reach the same excitement level that being there physically traveling with your body.
So, though the system has made us connect today, so we can be thinking that it is both ways that, even physical events are there, and then this virtual platform makes us connect to people very far off, and when we cannot able to move around. Right. So with this and a great explanation to how hybrid, virtual and physical events are working around, I will move to you to my next question. That is, the traditional MICE aspects such as logistics or travel lost much importance as a result of the pandemic. And the industry is now dominated by strategic communication and digital transformation. In this new era of events, how are you structuring your marketing strategy?
If you ask about how do I market my services and my company, I can definitely recommend for every colleague to have a better presence in LinkedIn as the main corporate network and social media where you could be surprised how many big professionals from big companies don't care, don't know, they have never been trained to take all the juice from LinkedIn. And that's
Mm-hmm.
also a trend, which is also
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to be and to be seen, to be showcased
Active.
if
Yeah.
you have the investment of time. Sometimes
Yeah.
there is not it's not necessary the situation where you have a profile and that's not the only job you have to do. You need to have a profile from you professionally, from your company, but also with content. Creating
Mm-hmm.
content, it's the challenge. Most of the
Yes.
conversations I have with colleagues and with employees also from other organizations is that they believe that they don't have the ability to create content. And sometimes they believe that they need to create contents from the start, and then of course you can create content from the start if you have the skills and the ability to create opinion, to create content, to share activities that you have done for clients. Other people say just they want to curate the content, obtaining content from the internet world and then adding their special and personal touch. I would say that LinkedIn, for me, it's the dominant network where I do my marketing as professional and for my
Mm-hmm.
company at the same time as a business owner. But if you are an employee and you are still understanding that you are your brand, and that's the case for everybody in this marketing world, you need to be cautious in the potentiality that you can explore magically, either connecting with new suppliers, connecting with new clients, connecting with new segments that you have never touched.
Yeah.
So definitely my first recommendation is use LinkedIn, and the second, as a travel professional or event planning professional, try to participate in different forms in the specific trade shows like IMEX Las Vegas or IMEX Frankfurt or EABTM or other boutique shows where you might feel what's going on an international scale, and you
Yes.
will notice the humor of the suppliers, the humor of the market. So going to the trade shows, it's very it's very interesting. I've been going to the trade shows since 2005, so I can tell you immediately if you go to IMEX in 10 years difference, you notice they grew, they shrinked, the space, the vibe, the humor, the amount of gifts, the amount of food. Sometimes that triggers the understanding and about how the market is
Great.
feeling the
Yeah.
crisis or the return back of the business. That is what we saw in 2022,
All right. All
very
right.
dramatically.
So we can sum this up as going out, meeting people, networking, and of course using social media is a very essential part of our day-to-day lives now. So that was a
Correct.
great tip for all of us, Alejandro, and of course we should follow it. Now with this, we'll move to our next question. That is, as we near the end of 2022 and approach 2023, it's impossible to ignore budget cuts and increase downsizing. Do you consider these post pandemic and pre recession changes as a sign of difficult time ahead of your event planner or venue operators or travel industry?
Well, that's a very good question because I believe that despite the crisis that we suffer in our industry during 2020 and 2021, what you see now in 2022, that the booming of the market that requires space, travel, venues, activities has a challenge, sorry, which is that in most of the cases, you are using money
Yeah.
that belong to 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
So 2022 was the bridge
Mm-hmm.
to use monies that did not belong exactly to this 2022.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of 2022, there will be back to zero in the financing
Yeah.
forecasting of most of the companies. And what they're going to use in 2023 will be just the
Mm-hmm.
money they forecasted for the next year.
Yes.
So, agreeing with your point, you will see a certain shrinking of the cake, which is not necessarily a crisis. It is
Mm-hmm.
a realization, is turning the market to a more sincere perspective, because what we are in most of the regions, what we experience in South America, in Europe, in the US, I don't know how it was in Asia, but that was not real. The demand was a demand that was consistently limited during 2 years, and then we opened the door, and everybody was looking for venues, everybody was trying to organize events, and that is why we see this booming, but it's artificial.
Exactly.
Now 2023, probably we will face a very real dynamic that will last, probably with big demand until September, October. Still, there are
Mm-hmm.
bookings coming from 2022. So at the end of 2023, so I would say let's face on 2024 as a challenge. I still believe that 2023 will be okay, will be
All right.
maybe a better negotiation between suppliers and clients. Now a client has no chance to negotiate anything because the
Mm-hmm.
market turned to a vendor winning side. That means take it or leave it, because I have other clients doing the line. If you don't want my venue, you don't want my hotel, I still have demand from other sides. This is still
Mm-hmm.
happening. And that will
Yeah.
last until the end of 2023. 2024, probably that will be a case where we will see a balance between clients negotiating with suppliers in a very neutral way. Now, I think the scale, it's turned on the side of the vendors rather to the clients. The client can believe that they have the budget, but the
Yeah.
demand, you see that on the flight rates, you see on the rates of the rooms are still very high. They are overrated in some cases.
That was a great insight into what we should be expecting from the industry in the next 2 years, probably. And as you said, yes, 2023, we hopefully think that we get prepared for the next 2024 and be all set for the next booms or growth that we are going to see. Now, as we end this conversation, this great, great conversation and insights that you have given me about and my viewers about the industry, about what all we can expect from the events, is there any additional advice or message that you would like to share with our event professionals community?
Well, again, if I mirror myself as coming from a South American country like Argentina, that in many cases it's far from other regions where all the action is always on, like Europe and United States mostly. I advise my colleagues to join associations where they can engage with other cultures, with other colleagues to expand their networks in the virtual world, with certain constancy, with certain tracking, with certain discipline, you can build your brand. You, as a person, as a event planning professional, you are a brand, believe it or not, a walking brand, with more hair, with less hair, but you are a walking brand, and you need to be aware that all the things you do and those you don't are speaking about you. So
Yes.
you need to pay attention to the content. You need to pay attention to who is on your networking site, because this is one of the big assets that we have. What makes us more attractive for the market and what is our own asset is the networks and the relations that rely on us. And if you have their reputation and if you have a certain track of activities successfully accomplished in different regions, I'm not saying that you will book a hotel that it's gonna bill you for $100,000 and you may have credit for that, paying that whenever you want. That will never occur, because in hospitality, all events have to be prepaid. But what I'm saying is that you need to be recognized as a client. You need to be recognized as somebody who knows the industry, and knowing about the industry requires to travel, to make mistakes, to see the mistakes that others are doing, and also identifying those mistakes while they are occurring to somebody else before it happens to you with your clients. Sometimes that's the reason why we do so many site inspections and we do some visits, because we need to experience from our perspective what it's going to be perceived lately with our clients, with the passengers that are coming with our incentives. So again, you cannot do this profession in a desk, in your home, in a cage. You need to be outside. You need to connect people. This is not an activity for people who don't like to be in contact with other human beings. You need to smile. You need to look at the eyes. You need to connect. And of course, when that's accomplished, you do the magic. That means connecting souls with souls, connecting human beings. Even the cultures are different. Everybody likes most of the structural things are the same. You like good food. You like the entertainment. You like to be recognized with a special touch as a client. And of course, there are surprises in the incentives that are always depending on the place you bring the group or the infrastructure that the city has. But those are my best examples of how we will evolve. And that's what I recommend to the other colleagues from this bright network of event planning professionals.
That was so good. Even I took some tips, and that's something I'm going to apply from this particular conversation. And I was using LinkedIn, content creation, networking, traveling around, and just new people to engage and get to know more about the industry. Because we as beginners, we still have to see so much. You people are still very experienced, right? So it was so good to have this conversation. And thank you for all these great tips that I'm going to keep with myself. And, hopefully, I think after this, I'm going to work on my LinkedIn and content creation, right? So thank you so
Very
much,
good.
Alejandro. It was so conversation, and it was so good to connect with you. And of course, there's one more point: we need to join more societies. So you will have to help us with some of the societies, and I think we'll be good with it, right? Thank you again. Thank you for joining me
Bueno,
in this podcast today. And as I always say, my event friends, thank you for joining in and watching our conversation. This was Alejandro Verzoub, and we will be coming back with new talk and new episode very soon. I hope you enjoyed. Do not forget to follow 10 times on Twitter.